earlier on, the sun was shining. It was quite warm, and it's still kind of warm, but it's very muggy now. You know what I mean by muggy?
Oh yeah. I've heard that that's
Okay.
part of the lifestyle there. So
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So yeah, what's the weather like there today?
living in South Texas, we have a subtropical climate. So the summers are very long, usually from like March through October. It's warm most days. And then right now here in July, it never gets below the 70s at night, and many days are in the 90s, sometimes to 100 Fahrenheit degrees. We use a different metric system here, but it's like almost an endless summer. So I'd rather be.
Well, Morocco's kind of like that. Marrakesh, Morocco, which is where I have a house, is kind of like that. And the winter months, it gets cold at night.
Yeah.
In there, that's because of the Atlas Mountains. The snow settles on the top of the Atlas Mountains, and the wind blows down, and it gets cold at night. But it is kind of the same, an endless summer.
Yeah. It's I don't know if you've ever been to Texas at all, but I don't know if you plan to travel back to the U.S. I know the United States is huge.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to get back to the U.S. I've got a lot of friends in Los Angeles. And I have friends in New York as well. They're the main places, California and New York, Connecticut, of where I've stayed, and then I have friends. And I really would love to come back to America.
Please do.
But we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be fantastic. I actually was born and raised in California, I think, as we've chatted about on our messages, and I've been in Texas for almost 20 years. So, but I'm still exploring parts of the U.S. It's huge. It's bigger.
Yeah, oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, the world's a big place for sure.
Yeah. Whereabouts in California were you born?
Santa Barbara. So I know your former.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, remember we talked about that.
Right,
Santa
John
Barbara
Lord.
Machine Head.
Yeah. I think he had lived there. You mentioned at one point he was originally from England, but
no, I had a band with John Lord and Ronnie Wood called the Santa Barbara Machine Head. And that's how I got to know Santa Barbara. And actually, John Lord lived there for a while. The keyboard player with Deep Purple.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. He lived there for a while, but I've never been there.
So with Santa Barbara Machine Head, that was actually one of the things I was going to ask you about. So is that how it got the inspiration for the name? Was because Mr. Lord lived there, or was that?
I think he was planning to live there because or he was living there when he came up with the name. I don't know. We went into the studio. In fact, John Lord invited us into the studio, myself, Ron Wood, Kim Gardner, and who else was it? Ronnie Wood, Kim Gardner. Oh, yeah, and John himself. I tell you who was playing with us, producing, which was Gus Dudgeon, who later produced a lot of Elton John's work. But anyway, we recorded for about 3 songs, 3 titles, and then I didn't hear anything for about 6 months, and then Immediate Records contacted me and said we want to put these 3 out on an album, alongside Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, and boom, 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 boom.
Oh, okay.
As a blues anytime series, volume 2, I think it was, and. And then he said, then you'll be known as the Santa Barbara Machine Head. So that was the first time I heard of it. So
that is such a cool story.
John was really driving that. I think he was trying to put a band together with us all together in it, but we were also doing so other things at the time. We were all very well established in other bands at the time. So that didn't come together, but eventually he put Deep Purple together.
Nice. Yeah, as a matter of fact, my mom just, that's been her home most of her life. She just relocated back there. She was in Northern California for a while, so she's there. And she knows that I've been connecting with you over social media, and she's been just absolutely elated. I have so much I want to talk to you about, but she wanted me to also tell you we have a lot of music on our side of the family, in our lineage, and she wanted me to share with you that my grandfather played with Kenny Burrell. He was a jazz guitarist from Detroit back in the Motown days.
Yeah, I know Kenny Burrell.
Yeah, yeah, and she also, my mom actually for a while dated BB King, and
Hmm.
my aunt dated John Lee Hooker, and
Great.
also Harold Minerve of the Duke Ellington band that played with Arthur Prysock and Ray Charles,
Hmm.
and it's and so on and so forth. And she also studied guitar, had a kind of an informal guitar lesson with Bonnie Raitt, and the list kind of goes on.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Great,
yeah,
great. Well,
yeah,
quite an impressive list.
it is. And so I wanted to kind of see what you're currently doing now with your musical projects. I understand you have some new things in the works, and are you it?
Yeah, I do. I have. Well, I'm doing Think Pink 6 at the. I'm recording Think Pink 6
Okay,
with some guys in Rome. They're called the Technicolor Dream. I've worked with them before, and that is an ongoing. We're almost finished with the backing. Um, that's almost complete. Then I'm going to go over there and record my drum parts and do the vocal parts and other bits and pieces. So that's in the works. I've got a couple of other projects on the go as well, but I don't want to say too much about them at the moment
okay,
because I might jinx them.
okay.
If I talk too much about them, but they're very exciting projects. Yeah, and yeah.
Is
Fingers crossed it'll all come together.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Is the is the Technicolor Dream have any affiliation with the? I know there was a kind of a British underground garage song back in the '60s called "14 Hour Technicolor Dream" by the Sin.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
there any?
No, there's no connection there apart from
Uh,
both bands are referencing the 14-hour Technicolor Dream, which was an event.
oh, really?
Which tomorrow, when I was with tomorrow, we actually played at that event. And yeah, so that was so that's just a reference. They're just the scene were referencing it, and the Technicolor Dream used the name of the Technicolor Dream. Are you with me?
Yeah, I had printed out some information I had looked at about kind of your whole bio starting, I guess, back in 1963, and one of those members of Tomorrow, I believe, if I have, he went on to also join Yes. Is that, do I have
Yeah,
that
that's right.
right? Okay.
You have that right. But that's 67.
Oh, okay, okay.
That's
Gotcha.
67. 67 was kind of a big year for a lot of people. The love and peace thing, the hippie movement and everything. And that's when I recorded with the Santa Barbara Machine Head. That was in '67, and I
Okay.
was with Tomorrow, and we were really doing very well. And of course, Steve Howe, who you were talking about,
Steve Howe,
Steve
that's
Howe
it.
is
Yeah.
he's the guitarist that went on to join Yes.
And I believe I had read online somewhere at some point, if I'm not mistaken, that one of the members of the Sin also is
Yeah, it was in Yes. It was in
okay. So
Yes
that
as
so this
well.
is why it was all
Yeah,
interconnected when we started talking about these three
yeah,
projects. Like, wait, there's a connection
yeah,
here.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah, Chris Squire was the
Chris
bass player
Squire.
with the
Yeah,
Thin, and then he later joined Yes. So yeah,
cool. That's very neat.
yeah.
As a matter of fact, getting back to kind of domicile here in Texas, next month, Deep Purple and Yes are performing here in Houston, actually in the Woodlands. So
Yeah, great.
that's going to be a fun show.
Yeah, I always wonder what these bands are like, because for me, neither of the bands are either Deep Purple or Yes. You know what I mean? Because they've gone before, and it's just a name now.
Right.
You understand? It's not really Deep Purple or Yes, but that's just a personal thing,
Right. So
I mean, you get my drift.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess there's so much we could kind of talk about, but I want to talk more about you than I want to talk about myself, kind of during this time we have together. So
I hate talking about myself actually, but I don't mind answering questions.
Okay. So 1963 was your first group was with the Deep Beats, and is that correct? Was that your
That's correct.
the
Yeah.
first
Well,
thing?
no, I was in bands before then. I was in skiffle groups and also rock bands.
Okay.
Before the Deep Beats, but the Deep Beats was really something special.
So
we had a great vocalist, really really good vocalist.
Gotcha.
He was really exciting, and yeah.
Yeah, I was reading. So you have a Wikipedia page under Twink Musician, and I've been.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and I was studying it quite extensively when I knew we were officially going to be able to, have this phone appointment. Mm-hmm. And when I was reading it, I realized that one thing led to another, because it would backlink to another band, and then that band another artist, and then that would go, to so on and so forth. So there's really a big revolving door with kind of your background and your history. So I might not even have everything on, you might have more to share, in other words, than what's on the Wikipedia bio, your own bio.
And Wikipedia is not always accurate either, because it's like I think lots of people put different things in there, and it's not always accurate. I think I've looked at it once, my Wikipedia page.
I think I've looked at it several times. And I have to go back and reference it, because there's so much information, and it's in a good way. It's fascinating. So
yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Okay, so after, I guess, if you will, kind of going in, somewhat of a linear order, the Deep Beats were an R&B band in Colchester, England, and that's when they changed the name to the Fairies.
Yeah, we had a recording. We were offered a recording contract, and the record company or the people that were managing us suggested that we change our name, and we threw a few ideas around, and we stuck on the Fairies, and everyone really liked it. But I think looking back, it wasn't a really great choice of names, because the first block that we had with the name the Fairies was we couldn't get into America.
Oh.
Our manager came over to try and book some of his bands, and all the bookers in America and the clubs and whatever weren't interested in a band called the Fairies
at that time. But now they realize the opportunity they passed. And
well, I guess, but there you have it. It's a weird thing.
Yeah, and I was reading that your grandmother was a professional concert pianist. Is that right?
Yeah, she was.
Okay.
My grandmother, Olive Dixon. She was a soloist, pianist.
Wow.
And
So that was.
Unfortunately, there's no recordings that I know of, but my sister does have some posters of her, some of her performances.
Well, if you ever get a chance, please post those. We would love to see them.
If I get, when I see my sister, I'll ask her if she can dig them out, and I'll take
pictures. Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
And then I was reading that Dane Stevens was kind of one of the first guys you jammed with when you kind of got started with your own musical career.
Well, Dane Stevens was the vocalist with the Fairies.
Okay, gotcha.
So he was that great vocalist. Unfortunately, he had a car crash when we were just about to break through. we had our first single was a Dylan cover, Don't Think Twice, It's All Right. So we were one of the first electric bands to cover Bob Dylan. And it's a great version, kind of like a country-esque kind of version. It wasn't a rhythm and blues version. The B-side was very R&B, but anyway, it was a sad story really, because Dane Stevens had a car crash.
Yeah, I read that.
And there were some fatalities involved, and he went to jail.
I'm sorry to hear that.
So we lost him.
Yeah.
So we lost him, and we replaced him. But it wasn't the same. We were flogging a dead horse, if you like,
Right.
Even though we had a couple of singles out with the new vocalist, and one of them is kind of like highly regarded in the sort of the garage genre, but it was never the same. And then Dane Stevens, when he came out, we got him back in, but it was too late,
Oh.
So sad story.
That is a sad story. Life is precious. You never know if it's going to be there tomorrow.
Well, one thing leads to another, really, because when we had Dane in, and Dane back in the band, and we weren't getting very much work, Steve Howe and Keith West, who had a band called the In Crowd, excuse me, and we'd been hanging out together, around the clubs and stuff, and came along to see me play one night, and they asked me to join the band. I joined the In Crowd, and the In Crowd eventually became Tomorrow. We changed our name to Tomorrow.
Oh, the In Crowd became Tomorrow. Okay, so the In Crowd was first,
right.
and Tomorrow evolved out of the In Crowd. Gotcha.
Out of the In Crowd.
I'm with you now. Okay. Yeah, I was listening to some of the songs yesterday. It looks like they did have a few singles, 4+1. That was okay.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, and then some of those past notable band members we talked about, Steve Howe, and then I was also reading that you guys were recording. Okay, so this would have been the In Crowd that was recording at Abbey Studio. Is that right? Or
well, no, we auditioned at Abbey Road.
Okay.
But by the time we were recording at Abbey Road, we were Tomorrow.
Gotcha. Okay. Got it. Okay, so Tomorrow was recording. Okay, so that was the recording demo.
Yeah. I think we started recording around about May '67, around about that time. I think the Beatles were just wrapping up.
I heard that. Yeah.
Sgt. Pepper.
Yeah. But which songs was Tomorrow recording at Abbey Studio?
Well, we recorded the whole album. We recorded My White Bicycle, which is our first single, and then a follow-up single, Revolution. But we recorded the whole album there. Okay. We had the Tomorrow album was recorded there.
And then I was reading that you mentioned that the Beatles were also in another studio concurrently recording Sgt. Pepper, and I understand Sir John Lennon came in and you guys got to meet.
Well, no. What happened was myself and Keith, we knew the Beatles were in the studio, so we went down the corridor and we were just sitting outside on the floor, trying to hear what was going on. And Ringo came down the hall.
Oh yeah.
I'm bouncing. He said, "Well, good evening, lads." And then he opened the door, or somebody opened the door for him. And John Lennon was sitting at the mixing desk, mixing for the benefit of Mr. Kite. That one of the songs from Sgt. Pepper. He just turned around and sort of said, but he was busy working, so there was no conversation or anything like that. But we were thrilled to had seen them working.
Oh, so you got to kind of have a little bit of a meet and greet there. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Ringo, I saw him perform in October in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Great.
Last year.
Ringo.
Yeah. And he's got his all-star band. He had Steve Lukather and Edgar Winter and Colin Hay. And it was one of the best concerts I've ever been to. So I heard he was going to be over Arkansas borders Texas. So I said, yeah, I hopped on a plane. I went right over.
Great.
And it was
Yeah, really.
fantastic. Yeah.
He's great. I love his humor as well. He's got a great sense of humor.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Paul McCartney, last year I saw him for the first time in Mexico City,
Hmm.
down in at Foro Sol Stadium, and then he announced he's reigniting his Got Back tour, and he's going back to Mexico City this fall. And I actually bought
Hmm.
another ticket. It happens to be on the exact same date, November 12th, that I was there last year. So he was so
Hmm.
it was so successful. So that's really awesome. And
Well, Paul's the only Beatle I haven't met. I've met all the others, but I have never met Paul. He's the only one.
oh, okay. Um, did you get to meet them through other concerts, or how did you get?
Well, I met John and George with their wives one evening in a club called Blazers. The Byrds were booked to play there, the American
The
Byrds,
American Birds?
and I got there quite late, and the place was packed, and um, a friend of mine was sitting at a table. He stood up at the table and he was beckoning me over. And so I thought, oh, great, I got somewhere to sit, because the place was heaving. And as I got closer, it was John and George sitting there with their wives, and they were moving up to make room for me, So I sat down, and yeah, it was great. It was a great evening. The Byrds came on, the American Byrds. They performed that evening. They weren't that great, actually, but it was a great night.
Oh, that sounds marvelous.
Yeah, yeah, it was
Yeah.
fantastic.
And this was in the 60s, you said, or
Yeah, it was 66, I think it was.
Okay.
66, yeah, yeah.
And then so I also heard, though, back to I believe tomorrow, John Lennon, though, was quoted as saying that one of the songs on that album was one of the most inspirational songs of the psychedelic movement to him. Did you hear anything about that?
No, no, I've never heard that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll send you the excerpt I read about that, because he
Hmm.
actually lends credit as one of his main inspirations, as one of the kind of all-time takeaways, was one of the pieces from
I
Mutin.
wonder what it was. I wonder if it was maybe My White Bicycle, because it's very, very psychedelic.
I think
And
it was,
but anyway,
yeah, it was My White Bicycle, I believe. Um,
yeah, yeah, probably was, because that's. But anyway, the Beatles had already recorded Sergeant Pepper, but although Sergeant Pepper is very psychedelic, it's not
mhm,
out and out psychedelic in the way that My White Bicycle is.
mhm.
It's totally psychedelic.
And then, so how many albums did Tomorrow produce? Was it, I think
Just one,
just one. Okay. And
just one. Yeah,
what was it
we
titled?
broke up quite early. Yeah, we broke up
Oh,
quite early because the
mhm,
singer put out a single as part of a teenage opera, and it was very hugely successful. So he was in a very difficult situation, and all his loyalties flew out the window, if you like,
oh yeah.
because of business,
Oh,
business,
oh yeah, yeah.
and yeah, there was a conflict between the band and the success of Teenage Opera, and Teenage Opera won. But in the end, the Teenage Opera thing fell flat because there never was a Teenage Opera.
I understand there was a remarkable Tomorrow show at the UFO Club, in, I guess, London. And I understand the band was there, and Jimi Hendrix happened to be there that evening, and you guys got to have a little bit of a impromptu jam. Could you share
Yeah,
the story a little bit more about that in
well, yeah,
detail?
well, a mutual friend of ours, a guy called Howard Parker, was kind of like showing Jimmy around London. He was a professional road manager, but he was also, he was very, yeah, he was kind of like, what's the word now? Well, anyway, he shoe visiting artists around London, and he was working for Jimmy at the time. And he brought Jimmy down to the club, the UFO club, because he knew Jimmy would like us. And I saw them arrive, actually, coming in through the door, and they sat down. The two of them sat down in the middle of the club, and on the floor. Mm-hmm. And our bass player at a certain point used to put his bass guitar down and do some kind of like audience participation, dancing and stuff, and on stage, and miming and that kind of thing. And he left his bass on by the amplifier. Jimmy jumped up, came up on stage, picked up the bass, turned it around because it was a right-handed bass. So he turned it around and jammed with us for about 20 minutes, I think it was, just jamming. So I had two of the greatest guitarists jamming with me, that particular night. Jimi Hendrix and Steve Howe, and it was amazing.
Oh,
okay. It was pretty amazing.
What a treat! Yeah, that's quite remarkable.
Yeah.
Do you happen to know if any of that particular impromptu jam session got recorded, or?
Oh, it's possible, but I've never ever heard that it had been.
Okay.
It's possible. Maybe it's on film somewhere, as well, because they were always filming down the UFO club. Mm-hmm. But I've never heard or seen of anything. But I jammed with Jimmy a second time, a few weeks before he died, with Steve Stills on guitar, Jimi Hendrix on guitar. I think Billy Cox was on bass, me on drums at the Speakeasy Club in London one night. They came down after they were recording Steve Still's solo album in Island Studios in London, and they were looking for a drummer to jam with. And Jimmy came up to me. He said, "Hey, we need a drummer." I said, "Look, because I was very stoned that night. I was like really out of it." I said, "I'm sorry, but I really shouldn't because I'm really too far gone." But anyway, what happened was the band that were
Sometimes the best creative work came out of using those kinds of influential tools. I've heard. I mean, not that I would know anything about it, but I've heard through the grapevine.
What happened was the DGA put on a sound that I used to like. It was a track by Spirit, which called "Aren't You Glad?"
I love that song. I love that song.
Yeah, me too.
It's a fantastic song. Yeah.
So I got up on stage and started jamming along with that. So Jimmy came up, plugged in, Stephen came up, plugged in, Billy came up, plugged in, and we jammed. The DJ took the sound down, obviously, and we just jammed.
With band members of Spirit, or just covering the Spirit song?
No, with Jimi Hendrix.
Jimi Hendrix and...
Yeah, because it was the DJ. He played that tune.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So while he was playing, because I was out of it. I mean, I was really gone, but I wanted to jam along with it, the track. So I just started jamming along with the record.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's fantastic.
And, So anyway, that was fun. It was fun.
Just a follow-up question to back to Santa Barbara Machine Head, if you will. So, how did the band members meet and collaborate and get together back then with Santa Barbara Machine Head, with Ronnie Wood and with John Lord? How did you guys all come together?
I was sharing a flat with John Lord at the time.
Okay.
So there was that. Ron Wood was also a pal of John's. He used to come over and visit me, and he used to come over and visit John at his flat, the flat that I was sharing with him. And Kim Gardner too was a member of Ronnie Wood's band, the Byrds, these original Byrds. And so we were like a little family, if you like,
That's awesome.
Yeah. So there was no real kind of like what John thought. Well, who should we get in here? We were obvious choices, if you like.
It just kind of organically happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And you guys got together and jammed, and I understand you guys did. I was listening to some of the songs. About 3 or 4 singles you guys produced. Something like that.
Yeah. There were just 3 tracks we did in one session.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then after that, most of you just kind of went on to other projects. You just kind of went different directions.
Well, yeah. Ronnie Wood was with the Jeff Beck Group at the time.
Okay.
And I was with Tomorrow, and Kim Gardner was with The Creation. So we were all very active and busy doing stuff. So it wasn't possible for us to really go back in the studio and with a view to putting an album out, or with a view to putting a band together. It just wasn't part of the conversation.
Mm-hmm. And then looking at more of the Wikipedia page for yourself, it looks like after Tomorrow, did that, if I'm not mistaken, did that then lead to Them Again, or?
No, The Pretty Things. I joined The Pretty Things.
The Pretty Things followed. Okay. I gotta tell you, I stream music from The Pretty Things almost every day on my Alexa.
Oh, yeah? Do you?
True story. Yeah. And so I understand that you replaced, tell me more about The Pretty Things. I understand you replaced one of the drummers or filled in for one of their original drummers.
What happened, I was working on a project with the bass player of Tomorrow called the Aquarian Age. And it was, it was a very exciting project, and we were writing together. The songs were great, and we had some great ideas and some great recording ideas and stuff like that. And then anyway, one day we went up to our agent's office just to keep them informed of where we were and what we were doing and what our plans were. And Dick Taylor of The Pretty Things was there, and he said, "Oh, Twink, Skip has left. Skip Allen was the drummer at the time. Skip Allen's left. He's gone off to France with, his girlfriend, and he's not coming back. We have some gigs in Rome this weekend. Can you help us out?" So I said, "Sure." It was my intention just to help them out for the weekend and maybe help them out throughout the month. Not to stay with them, because I had the Aquarian Age project on the go. But things got so busy with The Pretty Things. I mean, we were just busy every day doing something. We were in Abbey Road recording SF Sorrow, which is, their sort of major album, I think. And we were touring Europe, and, so the Aquarian Age thing kind of went off the boil.
Okay. And 10,000 words in a cardboard box. I think you had emailed me at one point and said you produced it, or
no. We wrote, myself and John Wood, the bass player from Tomorrow. We wrote the song.
Okay.
And it was produced by Mark Wirtz, who was an EMI producer, an Abbey Road producer.
Okay.
He was also Tomorrow's producer, Mark Wirtz. His name was.
Who was? Yeah. So were you did you sing on that song, or who was the main singer?
Yeah, I sang on it.
Okay, so
we sang it together. It was a duo. We were singing together.
Okay, so you were one of the co-vocalists on the song. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all right, thanks for clarifying that. That song is also played quite often. I don't know if in England, if they have it. Sirius XM, it's a streaming radio service.
Heard of it. Yeah.
So every Saturday and Sunday, there's actually one of the channels they have is called Underground Garage, and every weekend they have a special episode. It's called Chris Carter's British Invasion. And for 4 hours, all they play are songs that have to do with artists from England or some kind of, thing honoring England, connecting back to Great Britain. And that song is one of the frequent picks by that DJ, Chris Carter. So if you ever get a chance, check it out. It's called Little Steven's Underground Garage. I don't know if you know Little Steven, who he is.
Yeah.
He's
isn't he a guitarist? He's a guitarist, isn't he, Little Steven?
He's Bruce Springsteen's guitarist.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I do know him. Yeah.
So they talked about your work quite a bit with 10,000 words in a cardboard box.
Great.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So
listen, I mean, we had some great songs. It shouldn't have ended there. You know what I mean? It's like, but hey, I did other things. I recorded SF Sorrow at Abbey Road with the Pretty Things, and SF Sorrow is regarded as a classic. So it's kind of, do you know what I mean? It's life is just so strange.
Unlimited potential. You can create anything you want, really. If you put your heart to
right.
it.
Yeah.
So with the Pretty Things, you contributed to quite a few of their songs. I know SF Sorrow was one of the albums that you were mainly involved in. What other song tracks with the Pretty Things did you participate in?
We did a movie with a British comedy star, a guy called Norman Wisdom. And we recorded, I think, five or six tracks for that, and they're great. They're really awesome. So we did that, and they although they weren't scheduled for album, to be released on an album, they have subsequently been released on an album.
Okay.
So there's that. Then we recorded with Philippe DeBarge, who was a French playboy, if you like. He was a huge Pretty Things fan, and he paid for the sessions and everything. And we recorded, an album with him as well, which was quite interesting. Did we do anything else? No, that was it. That's all I did with the Pretty Things.
So like, for instance, like she says good morning. Were you involved with?
Yeah. Oh, yes, and I play drums on that, and
really,
and I'm actually I play drums, and I'm actually on the conversation at the end. There's a conversation between SF Sorrow's girlfriend and SF Sorrow as he's on his way to work. Do you know the story of SF Sorrow a little bit?
I know a little bit. Some of the. Okay, well, yeah. Tell me all about it.
Okay, so there's a conversation that happens at the end of the track, where my voice, I say, "Oh, good morning," and then there's a girl in the studio. Her name was Barbara Daly. She was actually a very famous makeup artist. Okay. So she says, "Oh, good morning." Then we have a conversation. So I'm doing that as well. But I play drums on that track as well.
On She Says Good Morning and SF Sorrow. Okay.
SF Sorrow, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I listen to She Says Good Morning quite often as well when I start my day, believe it or not. And I don't know if it's the same voice you're referring to, but towards the end, something about miss the bus, and she says, "Oh no," or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I forget the exact dialogue. But that was my idea, to do that conversation, and to as a kind of a link, to the whole story. And Norman Smith, who was also the Floyd's producer, was producing that album, and he said, "Oh, it's a great idea. Let's do it." He was very, very receptive to all the ideas that I put forward. He took them on board and said, "Yeah, let's do this, let's do that." Whenever I suggested anything.
And how about Midnight to Six Man? Was that also a track?
No, I wasn't involved in that. That was before.
Okay.
I joined them in '68. I think Midnight to Six Man was recorded in '65.
Okay. That's a terrific song too. Got a great beat. Yeah. Very creative.
I think that's the last great Pretty Things single. You know what I mean? There was a great, because I was a fan of the Pretty Things in the early days, before I became pals with them, and then I joined them. I became a musician, but in the beginning, I was a big fan.
How about Blue Turns to Red? Was that also prior to '68, or?
No, I never heard it. What's that? Blue Turns to Red.
It's one of it's one of their songs, The Pretty Things. It's a terrific song. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll have to have a listen to it, but I don't recognize it. I don't think it's from that period. I think that's later.
Okay. And so you started with them in 1968, and then did you what year did you stay with them until you moved on to your next project?
69. I was with them for about 18 months.
Okay, so I would have to narrow down some of the songs I was hoping to kind of chat with you about to see if you participated on them or not. I was looking some of them up on Google, but now with Google AI, kind of like you said, you're not 100% certain what's accurate until you go to the source. Then it's a rare opportunity you can vet information truly from the source, such as yourself. So this is official business here, for the record. If I could just inquire on a couple more of the tracks that come to mind, I believe Electric Banana was something you were involved with the Pretty Things.
Oh yeah, Electric Banana. Yeah, well, they were the recordings that we did for the movie with Norman Wisdom.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, it was the film was called What's Good for the Goose, and there's a really great. I love those recordings.
Yeah, and then there's Talking About the Good Times.
That was just before I joined them.
Okay, and then
Talking About the Good Times.
Okay, and then I believe I saw a video with you playing with the Pretty Things. It'll Never Be Me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm playing on that one.
Yeah, it looks like that was on some kind of hybrid movie set music video or something like that.
Yeah, that's probably. I think that's from the movie.
Yeah, it looked like there was some kind of party going on in the background. So,
at the same time. Well, you could probably download the movie. Yeah, it's called What's Good for the Goose.
Okay, What's Good for the Goose? I'll look it up.
It's weird. It's a weird film, but. Well, I'll leave it with you, if you want to watch it.
Okay. So other than SF Sorrow, that from my understanding then, just to summarize, that was your predominant contributions with the Pretty Things is SF Sorrow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
got it.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, and the Electric Banana track. I'd say that was pretty dominant stuff as well, Okay. But certainly SF Sorrow, yeah.
Okay. There was and I mean this actually as a compliment, what I'm about to cite here. I read that there was an article about climbing the speaker stacks when the band played at Hyde Park and diving into the audience. That must have been a real thrill at the time.
Well, I was wondering when you were going to mention that. Yeah, no, it was at. I don't know. I used to do silly things. I was so immature and wanted to draw attention to myself and show off, And on this particular occasion, I climbed onto the stacks, and it wasn't my intention to jump actually because it was very, very high.
Oh wow!
It wasn't my intention, and I was beckoning the people to move out of the way. I was pretending that I was going to jump.
So you went crowd surfing?
And they moved all the way out of the way, and then the time came, and I thought, what the hell, and I jumped.
And then you went crowd surfing, and the fans passed you around, or?
Yeah, no. I just landed on the ground. Luckily for me,
wow.
The ground was pretty soft because it had been raining the night before, so it was I survived.
Okay. Well, once an entertainer, always an entertainer, as they say.
That's right. I mean, it was pretty amazing actually because what happened was when I hit the ground and then I came up and I threw my hands up in the air like this and I went, I'm okay. All the people that were there, I think there were about 10,000 people there altogether, who had been sitting on the floor watching. They all stood up.
Well, I don't know if that one made any video footage, but I can tell you that it is on the Wikipedia page. So it's made worldwide history on the World Wide Web. Kudos.
Yeah, so it was fun, but it was a pretty silly thing to do, really.
And then after the Pretty Things, is this when you transitioned into more of your solo work with Think Pink Edition 1?
Yeah, I was still with the Pretty Things when I recorded that.
Okay.
Because most of the Pretty Things are on the album. I don't think Dick Taylor is. Oh no, because he wasn't with the Pretty Things then. He'd already left. Victor Unit, who was the guitarist then, he's on it. But yeah, so I recorded that just before I left the Pretty Things.
Okay. Do, do the Pretty Things still plan any kind of reunion or any type?
No,
Oh,
no, because Phil May passed away a couple of years
I read
ago.
that. I saw. That's really a
Yeah,
bummer.
yeah, I know. It really was a bummer because he was just having a normal operation, a simple operation, and and he didn't survive.
That's really a
Yeah,
heartbreaker. I was hoping that there
yeah,
might
that,
be
I
some
know.
kind of reunion. I mean, reform and retour again because I think that they did one last. I think I
Yeah, yeah,
read it was very kind of underground. You had to really dig to find it. But a couple years ago, didn't they do one
yeah.
last
Well, no,
couple
I think it was
shows?
about 5 years ago. They did. I think it was the Last Bow or something. It was called the Last Bow,
Okay.
and they had Dave Gilmour guesting with them as well.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, so that. But I wasn't invited, and I did ask because I was a fan of the bands, and then I was friends. And then I was a band member, and I contributed, and I asked to participate, but I'm sorry, there's no time.
Well,
It's probably because of my the antics that I got up to, when my immature days, when I was
oh,
with the Pretty Things.
no, that's
But there's a
yeah, that's bygones be bygones. So I don't know.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
that's a
exactly.
shame because that would have been a great unification, to see everybody together on the
Oh yeah,
stage. I would have
um,
been rooting for it all the way. So that's their loss.
a lot of people would have been, a lot of
Yeah,
people would have
I
been, but
agree.
yeah, there were people there had I think had flags or posters saying "Where's Twink?"
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
So after the Pretty Things, you went more into your solo work and then kind of walk me through. Was it the Pink Fairies that was your next focus after
Oh,
that,
the
or?
Pink Fairies. Yeah, that was that was Pink Fairies was next. Yeah,
Okay.
that
Um,
that kind of grew out. That grew out of the doing the solo album because I recorded that with members of a band called the Deviants, and it was
mhm,
produced by the Deviants um, lead vocalist. His name is Mick Farron.
mhm.
He's no longer with us, and so the Pink Fairies really was an extension of what I did on Think Pink. In fact, I always think of the Think Pink as being the first Pink Fairies album,
Is that right?
you know.
Yeah.
And then we did an album called Never Neverland. Yeah,
Okay, so I'm sorry. Tell me more about. Continue on with the Pink Fairies.
Pink Fairies was grew out of Think Pink. Another pretty amazing time actually.
And then I was
Lots of
reading.
fun.
And then I was reading about Ladbroke Grove, or I have.
Yeah. Well, I lived just off of Ladbroke Grove.
Okay, that was the home of the UK underground. And did the Pink Fairies have all these members and any recordings that are made of the work at that event? There was a specific event, I believe, at one of these clubs. Um, well, actually, so the Pink Fairies then that leads to Stars, right? After that, that's after,
Yeah, well, yes. Not
okay,
not initially. Well, and there was a period. I think Pink Fairies started in 1970,
okay, 1970.
and then I left in mid '71, and I went to Morocco, and and then when I came back to Morocco, I moved to Cambridge because I gave up my flat in Ladbroke Grove, and I'd arranged to live, when I came back to move to Cambridge, which is what I did. So that would have been kind of like autumn of '71. And then eventually I've had a band with an American guy called Bruce Payne. He's no longer with us. And we were called the Last Minute Put Together Boogie Band. And it was the last minute put together boogie band that I was playing in when Syd came along to audition, because I always think he came along to audition myself and Jack Monk because he was looking for people to play with. This is kind of like what must have been January '72, I guess, around about that time. So we were booked to play with a guy called Eddie Guitar Burns, which I think I sent you some recordings of Eddie Guitar Burns, didn't I?
Yes.
We were booked to back him, and Syd turned up that particular night to jam. He had his guitar with him, and he wanted to jam. So we said, yeah, cool, no problem. So Syd jammed with us that night. And then a couple of nights later, we were playing at the Corn Exchange, supporting the MC5. Or was it? No, we were supporting the Pink Fairies and Hawkwind. And the last minute they put together Boogie, we were supporting them. Syd came along again with his guitar and said, can I jam with you guys? And he jammed with us again. So that was the introduction, if you like. That was kind of like, we passed the audition. Myself and Jack Monk passed the audition. Syd thought we were the best players in Cambridge, and he wanted to form a band with us.
Wow.
So that was that. So a couple of days later, I left the last minute put together boogie band, as did Jack, and we moved into Stars. And started rehearsing with Stars and doing a few gigs.
So I know we've dialogued the last couple of years off and on that we mutually share a really special place in our hearts about Syd Barrett, of course, formerly one of the initial founders of Pink Floyd. So my heart skipped a beat when you told that story. Just now, the fact that I get to talk to you one-on-one about that, I mean, is quite remarkable. It really is. And was this your first time meeting Syd? No, because we used to meet often at gigs. We were on the same bill many times. So no, it wasn't the first time we'd met. Syd also came to the because I had a finishing Think Pink party at the Speakeasy. Syd came along to that with Iggy, Iggy Rose. Have you heard of Iggy Rose? Iggy the Eskimo, the girl on the front of Madcap Laughs. As a matter of fact, yes, she's she's on the cover.
Okay.
Yeah,
she's on the cover.
Yeah.
But she came along to the party. He was invited, and she brought Syd with her. Syd was at the Think Pink. Finishing recording party.
Oh wow!
Like. And but where was I? I was what I was saying.
Well, because we're talking about Syd Barrett, it's so it's so multi-universe.
Yeah.
Very parallel reality.
Anyways, so Syd was Syd was just amazing. I mean, his guitar playing was outstanding. Oh yeah, this is the point I was trying to make, was that like the stories that go around of it. Syd was like, had lost it. He said, he didn't want to do this and he didn't want to do that, but he did want to play. Because he proved it. But it's the Stars story is a kind of neglected story. People just keep pushing it aside because they don't want to hear. They don't want to hear that he was okay.
Well, I don't know about back then, but to me, it seems like more and more now that's becoming, it's rising up to be more sought after. It's becoming kind of a heroic story in and of itself. It's resurfacing as very popular, with people now realizing, kind of looking back in retrospect, if you will, realizing what a special soul that was, and people kind of realizing what he really had, and seeing that the underdog sometimes the best of them all. So, or not that I think he was an underdog in any way, but just some people they have you know, how people that don't understand the full picture, they get stereotypical, you know, but I think it's resurfacing as a whole nother repopularization, you know, with stars.
Yeah.
If I,
Yeah. Well, I hope so, because it's a very important, because it was his last go round. You know, he was really, I'm not saying he was desperate to be successful or anything like. He just wanted to be in a band.
Yeah.
You know, and that's all I wanted to do, and that's all Jack wanted to do. That's all the three of us wanted to. And we overstretched ourselves by accepting the gig at the Corn Exchange, supporting the MC5. That's where we went wrong, because we were just a band playing in coffee bars and you know, the May Day event, which was a hugely successful event. There was a lot of people there. We played well. Syd played well. Syd was very much in control of the event. You know, and all of these very small Cambridge gigs. Then we did this thing at the MC5. We had very poor road crew who set us up too far apart. Jack was too far away from Syd, and I was too far away from both of them. I'm not trying to make excuses, but it was very, very poorly organised, and we just overstretched ourselves. We shouldn't have done that gig.
Yeah,
Syd cut his finger that night, and we had problems with it. And that was the one that was reviewed. If any of the other gigs that had been reviewed, it would have been a different story. You know what I mean?
It sounds like the acoustics, the logistics just weren't kind of aligned, and I don't, you know, I mean, back at that time, like you said, that they just focused on reviewing that one. You know, this was back when, I guess, print and, you know, press, newspaper was the mainstay for reviews and information spreading. It isn't like they didn't have the internet back then to appreciate.
The business at that time wasn't aware that Syd was doing stuff. They didn't know that he was out and about with stars. Okay, so when that hit the press, you know, this disastrous gig that's, you know, Syd's comeback gig, you know, he was called into his office in London by his alleged management people, and my gut feeling is he was told to leave the band. He was told to fold up the band.
You're talking about with Pink Floyd or with?
No, I'm talking about Stars.
Oh, with Stars, okay.
Because suddenly they saw that Syd was out and about doing stuff, you know, and they didn't know that he was out and about playing with stars, yeah, and the review wasn't very good. So I think they told him because he went into London and he came back from London to round to my house, and he said, I don't want to play anymore. That's what he just came to my front door, and he just said, I don't want to play anymore, Twink. And I think my gut feeling tells me that it wasn't him. He was put under a little bit of pressure.
And Stars was after the last minute put together boogie band?
Yeah, it was after.
And your collaborations with Syd were with both the last minute put together boogie band as well as Stars?
Yeah. The last minute put together boogie band, they're just kind of jams.
Okay.
You know, Syd came along and jammed with us. Stars was we had some rehearsals around in Syd's house in Hills Road, and then we started rehearse at the back of where I lived in Union Road, and then we did some gigs. We did some great gigs, small gigs, but great.
Do you have any recordings of your work with Syd with either of these groups?
Oh yeah, well there's you can, if you check online and on YouTube, there are some recordings of the last minute put together boogie band with Syd.
I'll have to see if I can find those, because at one point I was doing quite extensive searches for that. I'm not sure if I could find those. Do you know if there's any title, tracks? Or?
I think it's what's it? Number 9. I think it's number 9. Number 9, the last minute I put together Boogie Band.
Okay.
Number 9, yeah.
I'll see if I can't
that's
find that. I'll see if I can find it. If I can't find it, I'll follow up with you next time, and maybe you can send me a link or something. So just because it's kind of a very special place for a lot of people in their hearts and for the world today that do see the remarkable work that you got to do with Twink and Syd together. What was Syd like as a person, his personality? I mean, just knowing him as an individual, as a man, as a friend, what was he like?
What he was, I don't know, kind of, when we used to see each other, for rehearsals, and, we did some socializing, but I don't know, it's hard to say. We were close, but we weren't close, if you know what I mean. I don't know if that's makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at the end of rehearsals, he'd go home, and then the next time I'd see him would be for rehearsals.
Uh-huh.
But we did go out a couple of times. We went out when we did actually the night before we did the Cambridge Horn Exchange gig supporting the MC5. We all went out to dinner. We all went out to a restaurant. I think it was myself and my girlfriend at the time, and then Jenny
Spires.
And Jack,
okay.
And Jenny Spires, and Syd. And then we all went back to my place, and we just hung out.
Mm-hmm.
And I often tell this story as it's a funny story because my girlfriend at the time was very, very pretty, and she's on the back cover of Think Pink. Okay. Actually, I don't know if you and I was. She went upstairs. We were in my house in Cambridge, and she went upstairs, and Syd followed her upstairs. So I thought, okay, he's up to his old tricks. So I followed Syd upstairs, and and we stood at the top. There's this like kind of embarrassed, kind of like 3 people standing at the top of the stairs, not saying anything. So my girlfriend walked downstairs, and Syd walked downstairs, and I walked downstairs. Quite a funny story. Really.
What was your girlfriend's name at that time? Or
Silva.
Silva.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Silva, yeah, Silver.
Okay.
And so that was quite funny. But no, Syd was.
I mean, as far as it's describing his personality traits, since you had such the pleasure of knowing him. I mean, anybody that would be curious about what he was like that didn't get to know him, what would you say?
Sometimes you kind of wouldn't understand where he was coming from with certain inquiries that he made. Like the night we were playing supporting the MC5.
Mm-hmm.
I put on my old Granny Takes a Trip jacket, and when I got there, Syd said to me, "Why are you wearing that jacket?"
And you're like, "Why not?"
Exactly, that was my response. Why not? But it was a strange question,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But he was a great guitarist, really, really good. Really good guitarist. He was listening to a lot of jug band music at the time. I remember when we got to a rehearsal at Hills Road one day, he came back, he went into town, and he came back with some records that he bought from Red House Records, which was the record store in the centre of Cambridge. And it was all jug band music.
Mm-hmm. Did he ever talk to you or about his departure from Pink Floyd and Roger Waters?
Never ever did. Never talked about Pink Floyd. Never.
Really? Okay.
The only time we talked about Pink Floyd was when we did we covered Lucifer Sam. We used to do that live. and that was my favorite track. I used to like performing that with Syd.
I heard that was about his cat. He was really close to one of his cats at the time, named Lucifer Sam. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I mean, back in the day, he said he was, Roger Waters said he and Syd were really close as teenagers. And so it's just unfortunate that they, I guess, kind of had that misunderstanding and kind of went their own directions. And then, with the other band members as well. I can't remember all the names right now. Nick Mason was it? And and that never was... So after, I guess, the disconnect from Stars and coming by your house in person to tell you, I mean, did you have any other contact with Syd after that again?
Not really, no. I saw him a couple of times in London after that.
Yes.
Just in passing. I remember... I was in Harrods in Knightsbridge one day, and I was going down the escalator, and Syd was going up the escalator.
Okay. Yeah, I heard.
And I think that must have... Yeah, he used to go shopping there quite a bit. I understand, but
yeah.
And I think that was probably the last time that I saw him, apart from when I went to. I think it was in the 90s. Was it the 80s? I think it was in the 90s. Then I dropped by some Margaret Square, with some stuff for him, which was the last time I saw him. But yeah, we never had really any contact after that. We just kind of drifted apart. When the band had broken up, and we were just, busy with getting on with our lives,
Yeah. And when you played at the Corn Exchange, it was under Stars? You were guys playing under Stars. Okay.
Yeah.
That's really just mind-boggling that there wasn't someone there to record the work. I mean, that would have just been such a jewel.
Well, I think we did a couple of days later. We did another gig at the Corn Exchange supporting Nectar.
Okay.
Have you heard of Nectar?
Yes, I have.
That was a much better gig, and there was a recording of that.
If you ever have the chance to send that to me, because I don't know
but I don't have it. It's been lost. It's been lost.
Do you know? Well, anyway, it's not.
My road manager, he had a copy of that. He had a copy, and he lost it.
What was your road manager's name?
His name Jolly McPhee.
Well,
that's. And we played it I remember we played it in the car one day when we were coming back to London from Cambridge, and it sounded quite good.
Okay, so it was a cassette at those days.
Cassette, yeah.
Well, I mean, you never know. Maybe if he says
never know.
Maybe he'll find it. I mean, it's funny because I have a sense that maybe that got. Maybe it's in storage somewhere in a basement in London, and one day it'll be found. And so, if I could just ask you, I know I had shared with you kind of my relationship with my my psychic, who's now retired, Pamela Osley, and you listened to the video about what her. Yeah. And I sent you a second clip as well recently. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to it. It was my last week.
I didn't see that one.
I'll send
Where is it? Did you? Yeah, okay.
Sure.
I didn't see the second one.
Yeah, I'll email it to you again. But I just if you.
Okay, great.
What was did you have any takeaways or feedback about what she said about Syd Barrett? Anything resonate with you about it, or anything make sense?
Not really. In fact, I can't really think of anything at all.
Okay.
Well,
I'll send you the second clip again so you can check it out. And I know Rosemary, Syd's sister, is still in England, so I don't know if you ever connect with her still, but she...
I don't know. I never talked to her. I was at an event for Syd, a few years ago, and she was there. She gets all of Syd's glory now.
Right. Right. I think she.
But we never talked.
Yeah, I think she manages his trust or his legacy. I think she still manages his fan page. All right. Well, this has been one of the most exciting experiences of my lifetime for sure, and I mean that with full sincerity. So thank you for taking the time to connect with me and meet you officially, at least on video.
You're right.
Please.
That's fantastic. Well, it's very nice of you to say that. But listen, if you want to set something else up to cover anything that you don't understand that I've said, or you want to, any other questions, we'll set something else up.
I would love that. I would, and I would, I could get a media format to you where I could maybe have it, like we could do it on WhatsApp, or maybe I could figure something else out that's easy for both of us to work with, where I could have the recording available to send to you afterwards, so you have it too, to put on your page. And I noticed you have a YouTube channel too, so a lot of the compilations that you're doing, put on your YouTube page, because people then can easily find it.
I don't have a YouTube page.
Oh, really? I saw one where it said your name, Twink Musician, and it had some of your work on there. So maybe I don't know who did it. It's not, it might be someone did it on your behalf. I don't know, but
maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, okay. Well, I'm kind of like not used to this technical stuff, but do you have a link for that or something? That I can go and check that out?
Absolutely. I'll send it to you. I'll email it to you, and if I can embed it to send it on WhatsApp, I'll try that as well. So you both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's been great talking to you.
It's been a pleasure. Yeah, and keep me posted about the new projects, and if you decide to do anything live in the future, give me some notice, because England's on my it's on my bucket list. I've been fascinated by England for a very long time. I've always wanted to visit. Never been to England. My mom's been there in the 70s. So, but you are our second closest ally here to America and the United States. They say England and America are the closest allies. So one ally to another.
Well, and so we should be.
Well, right. And I don't know. Anyway, we won't get into that. But if you don't know if you heard about what happened in America, not that I am political in any way, shape, or form, but have you heard about what happened in American politics over this weekend? Did you hear the news?
No, what happened?
President Joe Biden resigned from the presidential race.
Yeah, I heard it. Yeah, I heard that.
And so now the Vice President Kamala Harris is been the next stronghold Democratic endorsement, and now she has to defeat Donald Trump, so we don't have a repeat of 2018. Because he wants to take away everybody's rights and restrict freedom, and he's a dictator.
Who does? She does. Oh, he does.
Oh, yeah. Trump. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So he's the one that opted the United States out of the World PAC, out of UNICEF and all those global treaties. So positive vision holding for Kamala Harris to get in. I know that's not what we came here to talk about, but it's been seismic vibes here in the U.S. over that, just sending shockwaves through our country. Because I intuitively sense, and so did my psychic friend, she knew if Joe Biden had just stayed in the race, he would have won. So it's the first president in our history where when they get to run for a second term, that one ever drops out. But he was under a lot of pressure because he fumbled around on his debate performance versus Trump on CNN. So it's like, the voters have a short-term memory. He would have probably still done fine. So. Anyway.
Well, it's all beyond me. It's all beyond me. We have to deal with our own politics over here.
Right. All right.
They're all crazy.
Yeah. Well, we just don't want to. Trump is buddies with Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin, and it's just really weird stuff. So we don't want that. We're supposed to be moving into light field Renaissance times, not going backwards. So. But anyway, it's been a pleasure, and I will look forward to doing this again with you soon. So.
Okay. Great. Will do.
All right.
Yeah, just let me know. Just let me know when you're ready.
Okay. And if you think of anything else that you want to know or talk about, or want me to talk to you about or ask you about next time, please, I'm all ears.
Okay. All right. Okay. Will do.
All right. You take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
That was my informal interview with Twink, formerly of you just heard, the Fairies, the Pretty Things, Syd Barrett's Stars, jamming with Jimi Hendrix. Do you know what a legacy, what a treat this was that I got to interview him? I'm like on a natural high right now. Totally 100% natural. That's the truth. We'll see you in interview 2. Stay tuned.